Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the J Free 906 podcast, where Mike and Jim sitting in for Shannon DeSalvo tonight. Jim, guys, how you doing?
Doing awesome.
Doing well.
Good to see you guys.
It's awesome having you here, Jim. I know that it's been a while, but thank you for sitting in for Shannon tonight.
Absolutely, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
I see you're sporting an awesome shirt there. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I can't appear on the J Free 906 podcast without representing. So, West Side.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come out. I do have some new hats coming. They're got some different colors, like a black with a white logo on them, and stuff. But I was thinking a cowboy hat, a black cowboy hat with J Free right up there in the front. Now that might be.
There you go. I'd buy that for
$1. Yeah, but so yeah. All right. So we're gonna continue on with the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch series. Obviously, this show has been just blowing my socks off like they said it would since the beginning. I mean, are you enjoying it so far, Jim?
It's funny, Jeff, because every time I honestly think that I can't be more surprised or that my jaw can't hit the floor enough anymore, they go ahead and do it to me again. I mean, it was this last episode was truly another edge of my seat and just, like you say, mind-blowing. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, the experiments, they started off right off the bat with some awesome experiments. And they are getting results just like they always seem to do. Without a doubt. It's hang on one second. I've just forgot geez. Okay. Having a little issue here with the Rumble side of things. We are live on YouTube. We're also live on Rumble right now, but for some reason, Rumble is not wanting to cooperate with me. I was trying to get in there so I could let people know that if they chat in Rumble, I'll be able to see it and I can respond to them. But for some reason, it's not updating for me. So we'll get that going. But anyway, we are going to continue on. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight. If you have not already, I would appreciate very much if you would subscribe to the channel. And if you click on the notification bell, you get notified right away when we come out with some new content. I had a little update I did earlier today. It wasn't for the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, although I did mention that we're having Eric Bard on tomorrow night at 7:30. Woohoo! So Mike and Shannon and I get to chat it up with Eric Bard, or Professor Bard, as I like to call him, tomorrow night.
He is.
Yeah. I you know what? And I've got a couple of pages of I tell you, folks, honestly, I'm going to do my very best to get to your questions. There have been some really good ones submitted for him, but we'll do what we can. I don't want to keep him here all night. Well,
we know he could do it, though.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm terrified.
I
can't stay up that late.
I'm gonna like that guy.
Right.
They don't make enough coffee for me to be able to hang with him. But anyway, so tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the J Free 906 podcast, we have Mr. Eric Bard, principal investigator for the Skinwalker Ranch team. And he doesn't sleep, Sam. That's very true. So he's going to be here with us tomorrow night. Can't wait. That's going to be an awesome show. So I did update that a little bit today. And so we got some other, stuff going on throughout the summer months. So like I said, click on that notification bell so you know right away when we have some new content pop up. Otherwise, just meet us here every Wednesday at 7:30 and you'll hear about some stuff there. So all right. So let's get started. So it was season 5, episode number 4, Bad Taste. And when I read that initially, I was kind of like, okay, what's that all about?
Yeah, especially after the dead animal stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, where are they going?
Yeah.
Dire wolf tacos, anyone?
No. I really love tacos, so please don't hurt them that way.
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was yeah. So, and that's why, I picked tonight's thumbnail for that particular reason, because of the whole dire wolf thing. So let's get started with that right now. We'll jump into that. So they start off over in the command center, at the beginning of the show, and the guys are over there along with Thomas and Candace, or Tom and Candace, and they've got Ben on the screen there. From the he's a biologist from the Hutchins Museum of Institute, and you've seen him on there a couple of times now. He's the one that they went to visit. He came out to the ranch. He looked at the birds, the dead birds, which again was just a really weird situation. Jim, you and we didn't get to talk to you about that. I mean, what was your take on the whole bird thing? I mean,
Um,
still squishy and everything.
yeah, that's really odd. I mean, there certainly seems to be indication that some things, at least on the ranch, don't decompose at what we would consider a regular or normal,
Mm,
quote unquote, whatever normal is, kind of
mm.
a rate of decomposition. And uh, I'm curious as to where they may have found the birds to see. I don't know if they've ever announced that anywhere,
No, they haven't, as far as I know.
No.
but just the fact that, like you said, that the amount of time that had transpired from the time they were discovered to clear up to the time that we saw in last episode where Ben was, taking a look at them and seeing that one piece of flesh in particular underneath the microscope looked like it was. I mean, it was still uh,
Mhm.
pliant. It was
It
still
was.
it
It
was
was
still
squishy.
yeah, and it still retained its dark red color.
I know.
It's truly a mystery. I mean,
Yeah.
and the one with the brain, with the crown of the head missing, really just kind of adds another layer to the whole mystery. It's like once we see something that we think is really cool, again, something else happens that makes us even more,
Yep.
that case of that reality just breaking,
Right.
shattering before us. That's how I describe both this episode and the last episode.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we know that Ben was out there. He took a look at the birds. He took a look at the what was left of the carcass of the cow that died back in like October of last year. And he saw that he had the one rib bone, that he had the what it looked like a tooth puncture in the bone itself, which I agree with him. It does. Either that or a very small caliber bullet, which I don't think that's the case, but so then he looked at that and he brought up the whole thing about a dire wolf. He had a skull there and the tooth would fit in there. Now, initially, probably as well as you guys and everyone else that was watching, I was like, dire wolf. Well, that's pretty cool, but really? I mean, it's been extinct for thousands of years. How is that possible? But now he followed it up with some more stuff. And before we get to all of that, let's take a look at the some of the other things that he examined. This was the branch of the olive tree branch that they cut off some of it and they let him look at, and he was talking about um, burned, look like pyrolysis, pyrolysis,
Pyrolysis. Yeah.
pyrolysis.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Pyrolysis. Yep.
pyrolysis. It burns without combustion. Um, I wondered how it would get like this. Some people said that it was from the beaver that was obviously chewing on this thing. It was from their saliva. It turned it brown. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's a big of a stretch there. It really looks burned to me,
Yeah.
especially when you get over here in this
Right.
section right here. You actually see what looks like ash here a little bit or
Yeah.
something, on it. So it looks burned. So again, we go back to why would something like that happen? And if you remember, there was the fence post
Yep.
that was burned. Um, and again, in a very mysterious way, there was no other burning. And I don't think somebody's going to use a piece of fence post. I think the fence post has been in the ground longer than the burn mark on it. I think it happened after it was a fence post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you got that. Then you had that UAP that showed up, and they said, "Oh, that's right over by where that UAP showed up." And they're all happening in the same area. So we can sit here and speculate, which I love to do, by the way, speculate all night long about how something like this would happen. And then we've seen movies. I've seen movies, and I thought, oh, a portal opens up. something shoots through there, burns a hole, gone. Okay, I know. I'm speculating. That was a reach, right? So that's a cool picture, though, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, okay, so let's jump back on that for just a minute. So again, your take on this, you guys?
It's the fence post by itself was just kind of an oddity. Now that they've got a second one, again, repeatability, they've been kind of focusing in on that quite a bit this season, and how important that is to science and trying to study things. Makes me wonder, because it doesn't seem like they spend a lot of time on that south side of the ranch.
Right. That's true.
Maybe more so for the function of the ranch. Maybe Thomas is out there and checking on cattle and stuff as needed. But there's not a lot of cameras down there. We have a camera on the south tower, but we don't really see that southwest section, which is kind of where they had started in Dry Gulch Creek that goes through there. So makes you wonder, is there other stuff that they just haven't seen because they don't go out there that much? They don't have much need to go wandering through there. And have they missed other stuff? I would kind of be interested if they sort of canvassed the area and looked for anything else, and then start marking those spots on a map. And is there a correlation between those things?
Yep.
Is it all happen in a straight line?
Yes.
You never know what the data is going to
Exactly.
show.
Absolutely. Spot on, Mike. I agree completely.
Yeah. So, I and maybe, some of what you said they may have. Obviously, we mentioned this before, get less than 1% of the actual experiment time and video that they've done. We get a very small portion of it that we get to see. But for sure, they may have done some of those things. But yeah, that's an area of study. Like you said, if things are lined up, that would be I'd love to see that. Pinpoint where these things are. Let me see it on a map.
Now, one other thing that I think we should mention, especially for anybody that is kind of new to the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, is that the fence post from last year, Don Mitchell, who was a member of not only the local Ute tribe, but also works as a fireman, basically, kind of type thing. And he was able to determine, along with Caleb's help, that there was no accelerant of any kind used on that fence post. And also it was not, now by accelerant, I mean there wasn't like gasoline or some other kind of fuel that caused that charring or that scoring to happen.
Yep.
So I think we kind of see the same thing on this tree stump that we saw from this year, from this current season. And while they haven't, said anything about whether or not there were any accelerants present, I would imagine that there weren't, because I'm sure that's something that Ben probably would have been able to determine pretty quickly during the course of his testing. But whatever this is, it strikes me as being perhaps some kind of energy, maybe directed energy. Don't ask me to explain that because I don't know, but that's just kind of where my mind goes with, because it clearly wasn't a case of lightning, particularly with the fence post, because there would have been nothing left of the fence post.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I really, I've seen trees that have been struck by lightning. I've watched it happen once or twice close by where I was, and it didn't. What we saw in this most recent episode and in last episode, episode 3, didn't seem to look like your typical lightning strike either. So it's going to be interesting to see, what the actual cause of this pyrolysis, as they call it, happens to be. Very, very interesting, very compelling stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I was just looking at that picture again. Yeah, it's really interesting. So hopefully we'll get to see more about that. The next big area that they jumped into with Ben was they initially talked about the Shermans. And from the 1996, when the Shermans had told the story about a large animal that was attacking some of their livestock. shot several times. It wasn't until he brought out the big rifle that before it actually ran off, they chased after it, and then it just simply disappeared. It was gone. When it got to the creek of all places, it jumped over there by the creek, never saw it again. So that was really cool. But and so they went down the whole path of the dire wolf again with this, which and for the guys to take this to any credibility, they I don't think if they didn't believe that there was even a shred of evidence for this, that they wouldn't have sat through this and shown all of us on television about this thing. Um, so, and also not only, and I'm gonna, and Mike has a very interesting thing that he wants to show here in just a moment, but I'm also going to mention Chris Bartel. I saw Chris was in the chat earlier. So the Shermans aren't the only ones that have seen some sort of a canine style large animal there. Chris has too, and he's seen the tracks, and he sent me pictures of those. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to throw those together this evening get to show you. But Chris has seen this thing twice, once with another guard and then once by himself in 2015, 2010, and 2015. So, I mean, it's something to take with a little bit of seriousness here because of that. Now, this picture here, this graph that I'm going to show you here, Mike has sent this to me. Tell us what this is all about here, Mike.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this last week, and that this is relatively new information. That the dire wolf is actually not a wolf. You can kind of see on the right. I can't speak to the data on the left there, but you can kind of see the lineage and the way things progressed. Up at the top is the gray fox and the Andean fox, then dire wolf, and then the jackals. And you don't get to the gray wolf until you get all the way down to the bottom. This is one of those cases where they say it was a sort of a convergence of evolution. It just happened to be that particular design of canine was successful. So the dire wolf was successful and the gray wolf was successful. But the skeletal similarity between the two doesn't mean that they look the same. And so the only point that I was trying to make is that if the Shermans looked at different pictures of wolves and picked out a dire wolf back then, the picture probably looked like the illustrations of dire wolves looked like wolves. We know now that they didn't actually look like wolves, even though the skeleton may look like, it's similar to a wolf or bigger than a wolf. This would have been something that looked, maybe like a massive fox, but it wouldn't have looked like a wolf. So I guess I don't know that the dire wolf maybe is a good fit. I would be more concerned about what Chris Bartel has been talking about.
Right.
I mean, to me, that makes more sense. Is you just have a significantly larger gray wolf or something like that that is roaming around there, and maybe they just happen to stumble upon the remains of one and hacked off the lower jaw, rather than collect anything else. But I just wanted to make sure and be clear that that's what I was talking about, is that it's actually wouldn't have looked like a wolf. So if they were picking out something that looked like a large wolf, it was probably just a large wolf and not a dire wolf, because they didn't look like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you for that. That's interesting. That's something that I know, Jimm, you said you were kind of looking this up too and getting some research on it. You guys are, that's why you guys are good. And that's why you're here, because you do that extra work. Did you have any input you wanted to add to that, or?
No, my analysis and the research that I did pretty well supports what Mike just said. So he's spot on with that. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is a lot of the data that I read about dire wolves is that they estimated they were only roughly, I say only because it's still pretty good size, but 38 inches at the shoulder height, which of course is larger than your average, large dog. I think probably even larger than a Saint Bernard, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that I went back and I read the Sherman's account, Terry Sherman's account, in the Hunt for the Skinwalker book. And it seemed to me, and particularly what you were saying a moment ago, Mike, about Chris Bartel, uh, the encounters that Chris Bartel had and the way that it was described by the Shermans seemed to be a lot larger than something that had a shoulder height of only 38 inches.
Yeah.
So it appears to be something. I hesitate to use the term, but I suppose it's apropos. Some kind of monstrously large
Mhm.
um, canine or wolf of some kind. And quite frankly, guys, if you had told me before this season started that we'd be at this point talking about the dire wolf, and not only talking about it, but actually having uh, scientific evidence that kind of the data drives us in that direction,
Mhm.
I don't know. That was not on my bingo card, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I mean, I it's not a case that I don't believe the Shermans. It's just that the direwolf aspect, from all of the myths and the legends and the stories that we've heard about Skinwalker Ranch, for me, that was one that was kind of further down the list for me.
Mhm.
Um, Certainly not to the same extent or as much in my frontal view as the wormholes, portals, UAPs, UFOs appearing on the ranch. This direwolf thing really. That's one of the things that really kind of has me shaking my head in utter amazement and disbelief at where this data seems to be pointing. And
Yep.
again, if you had told me before this season that this is where we would be and that the dire wolf would be, this much in consideration, um, I'm truly surprised and shocked. Doesn't do it justice for
Yeah.
the way I feel about it. So
Yep.
pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it truly is. And so I've got some pictures. They were going through and showing these pictures of the actual jawbones. And of course, you remember seeing them guys go in when they were in the following in the creek there. The creek, I said it creek, didn't I?
Hey, it is Crick,
It is Crick. Who says it's not Crick?
right?
Well, where I came from, it's a creek, but I just said creek because they all say creek around here. But anyway, they were walking in the creek and they came across that carcass there that was just terrible, and they removed the lower jawbone, and then they put it up. They took it and gave it to Ben, and he was checking it out. Now they went through a couple of different types of wolves here, a coyote, a gray wolf skull, and then comparing it and then talking about this area that's right here and the width of this area. And you can see the differences here in their size. And talking about how it had to have that to be able to bite down as hard as what he was saying it would have. Um, and then, of course, going to the final one, which was um, this one here, and you see that now I did try to line these up so they were kind of obviously it is some sort of a wolf type because you look at the teeth. I mean, they're almost identical, like a key. It's got the same types of ridges and the canines and everything else.
Mhm.
But it's that same thickness here as the direwolf one was. Now, he said that has the characteristics as if like a young one. It had, and again, he wasn't saying it was, and that's one thing I did. I was glad that Ben went there, saying he was very careful to say
Mhm.
he wasn't saying it was a dire wolf. He said
Right.
it has the characteristics that
Yeah.
of such a thing or a young one
A
or
young one, or possibly like Michelle said just a moment ago, a possible
hybrid. Exactly.
hybrid descendant. So
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. And I hope folks didn't think that I was saying it's categorically a dire wolf, because that is not the case. It's just it's in the conversation, in the discussion. And that alone is astounding to me.
Yeah. Yep. And so, I mean, you look at it and it's got a lot of those characteristics. So I don't know. They're going to try and run DNA on this thing because obviously they have some. on
Yeah,
this thing, so they can run it. Let's find out what they come up with. I'm very, very, and so are
Yeah.
they, very interested to see what the DNA results come back as, and hopefully
right.
won't take too long for us to get that information. So, and then at some point we're going to have Chris Bartel on again, and then Chris will take us through this particular episode of his life and experiences where, and again, he had those footprints that he saw, and he had his dog that was with him had made footprints, and he was you could see them both in the picture.
Mhm.
And the wolf prints that were there, or the other canine prints, I'll say, were much larger than the dog he was with, which was a good sized dog. So hopefully we'll get to hear about this pretty quick and then be able to get more information. Um, so next the guys jump over to the triangle. Jan Frankie comes out again, and this guy, I mean, I have a lot of respect for this man right here. I mean, he
Yep.
makes, like Eric Bard loves to make all kinds of electronic stuff. He builds things all the time. So does Jan, and he builds his own ground penetrating radar units. Um, and not only did he use one last year, but he said he upgraded it this year. It
Mhm.
goes deeper
And it goes above,
and it goes above.
right?
Right. Yeah. Goes out in all directions, I'm sure.
Goes out
Yeah.
in all directions. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Omni radius there.
Yep.
And they're looking basically at this area in this box here, was the area they wanted to concentrate. Now, if you remember, this is the area that was the Lunasond, what was it? There was a couple, the
Juniper.
radar. Yes, Juniper had some information. Everything was showing them that there was something in that red box, something underground in that area that needed further investigation. And so they were concentrating on this spot. So Jan, as you remember last year, they had Caleb actually dragged this GPR unit behind him. You see this little image here of this guy dragging it. This time Jan did it, and he was dragging it around back and forth in this area, and then was getting ready to look at the results. I took this picture here because we often talk about all the different types of equipment. We wonder what's on the ranch, different type. I don't know exactly what this thing is next to the Jeep here, but um man, they got some cool toys, don't they? Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what this thing is. It looks like some sort of an antenna
Anna. Yeah.
of some
Definitely.
sort, but man, cool gadgets, for sure. The two areas of concern now this year, that they're really hitting on is the East Field and the Triangle area. These are the two main spots, and you see the command center is right in the middle between the two. This is where they call it now the in and the out spots, because they did that radio signal. This is where the orb UAP went down and disappeared into the mesa, and then appeared to come out of the mesa at the out point or over by the triangle. So it went in the East Field area, and then came out over in the triangle area. And so that's where they set things up. Of course, they shot off a rocket to stimulate something going on. And right after they did, I mean, well, during the rocket launch again, and this is one of those things here that yeah, I know, Mike, I know you've done a lot more research on GPS and how that works with time and multiple satellites and everything else. We saw this last week with the rocket launches and the GPS being all wacky, and here we are again. Both of them
Yep.
that they launched, same kind of thing. What I mean, blocked? Is it being blocked? I mean,
I don't, I mean, it's still showing data points.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's still sending information. This would be a good question for Eric to maybe flesh this out a little bit. If they've got, if he's got additional information that he can share.
That he can
I
share.
know a number of people have asked, have they tried doing a control rocket launch, do it someplace else and see if is it the speed of the rocket that's causing the signal to be
Yeah.
disrupted, or what would I mean? Can you get a straight up in the air GPS signature from a rocket if it's not being shot in those areas or someplace else on the ranch, or maybe not even on the ranch? I don't know. To me, that would be good to know. We know that they have done a number of controls. They've talked about that, through the insider program. So we know that they really are doing all of the good science that we would expect them to do. Just it's not very exciting to show on TV, so it doesn't make the cut. They
Right.
just show the exciting stuff where it
Right.
goes wonky. So that would be good to know from Eric what he's actually seeing and what his thoughts are on this, because it shouldn't shouldn't be doing any of that. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. Eric Phillips says the GPS device is way faster than the rocket
Yeah.
moving. I guess I don't know
Sure.
enough about them, so I can't say if that's true or not. But yeah. But yeah, very interesting there. I mean, Jim, what do you are you an expert on GPS?
I am probably the only person in the world that would get lost with a GPS.
So don't strap one on you because it's definitely going to go
Yeah,
wonky.
yeah. I'm GPS kryptonite, as Dragon would
Ah,
say.
there you go. See, yeah,
But no, my it's just fascinating to me how, we talk about repeatable results, and
yeah,
we see results like this almost every time that they affix some kind of a GPS device to a rocket that they shoot up.
mhm,
And the fact that some of the gaps in the data seem to be occurring,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, in relatively the same place.
yep,
Um,
yep,
so
mhm,
uh, again, it's another mystery. It's one of those things where, uh, how do they figure out what it is? And
yeah.
stay tuned, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing, and like Mike said, would be the control. Do they fire them off with the GPS away from all of this to see what it does? Does it show up properly? But also keep in mind too that where they shot this one off was in the East Field because Jan was over working in the Triangle area. So they shot the rockets off over in the East Field. That was the in point. And
Right.
remember that this particular one anyway had the GPS look like it had turned and went into the mesa at that end point
Mhm.
Precisely.
and then kind of like headed towards the triangle. That's what the GPS said, even though it went straight up 1,500 feet or whatever. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wrote that down because that's a good thing. If Eric can talk on that, and we'll check with him.
I
I don't
wonder
want
if
to
that
put him on the
that
spot.
antenna that you showed, I
Yeah.
wonder if that antenna is the
Ah,
receiver for this GPS signal, because
ah,
we're seeing this live. I mean, that it's real time. In the
yeah.
past, he's strapped on GPS devices to things, but he has to retrieve it
And
to look
down.
at the data and show it later. But this is
Yeah.
live. I wonder if it's that antenna that's picking up this the
Very
transmission
well.
from
Mhm.
whatever he's obviously upgraded his device just like Jan did. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna ask him about that because that's truly interesting stuff there.
So
Here's just another go ahead.
here's a thinking outside the box moment. Maybe if there's not an actual mundane kind of scientific explanation that they can affix to this in some way, shape, or form, maybe the reason why the visual is that the rocket is going straight up, but then the GPS return shows it going in all these different directions. And sometimes there's GPS readings of things going deep underground. And I wonder if maybe if there is an interdimensional kind of aspect to the ranch and how they go about determining that, I couldn't begin to tell you how. But if there is something like that, maybe it's constantly in motion kind of type thing. Maybe it's just I don't quite know how to articulate this, but maybe that's a result of some kind of bleed through of some kind of
Yeah.
unknown thing that causes the data to look like it's going to the west or to the east or directly underground. Maybe there's something that that causes that maybe, and
Yeah.
again, what that is, and I'm sure I'm making no sense, so I'll keep quiet now, but
No, it's the anomaly.
yeah,
It's the
it's just
anomaly thing.
totally anomalous, yeah.
It is. It is. So hopefully we'll get some clarification on that from Eric if he can.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's also interesting, and yeah, this is why, and said this before, but this is why I love these guys because they're throwing all this science at it. Because Jan said, like 5 to 10 seconds after that rocket launch, he got something weird on his. He's looking at his GPS. He doesn't have the full data yet, but he's looking at the GPS, or no, I'm sorry, he's looking at the GPR data on his phone as he's doing it, and he saw a blip, something from above affecting it 5 to 10 seconds after the first rocket launch. Okay. And then it happened again. And this was when they were in the command center, and Eric was showing them the red now is instead of blue, but it's basically the same, showing it going into the mesa right here. Um, yeah, same interval after both rockets, coach. You're exactly right. Oh, we got let's see. Thank you, Craig. A question for Eric: did the raw record GPS match the GPS recorded by the remote system? Ah, if he did, you would think that it would have been recorded. Let me mark that down. So you would assume that he's still getting that recorded version, and we'll ask him about that. We'll find out, Craig. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate that very much.
that's a good question, because one of the corruption points could be the signal sending that data to that antenna.
Yeah,
Maybe something is causing that, so the GPS data is correct on the device as it goes up with the rocket,
right.
but the transmission of the data gets altered, or garbled, or interfered with, or something, and maybe that's just the way it comes in bad. That's a good question.
Yeah, but the raw recorded data that's on the
It's
unit
fine.
itself might be okay.
Yep, that would be
Show
interesting to know.
something. Yes, that's a very good question, Craig. Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely if he can share with us, because again, you guys know that if it hasn't aired, he can't talk about it. But and maybe in this particular case, they moved on, or it might be. We'll see what he can do. Hopefully, he can answer that question. But that's really good. That's why, again, Mike and Jim. That's why we love doing these live, right?
Right.
Because we get some great questions.
Well,
Um,
your community just is, on the ball. They always are. They ask very thoughtful, intelligent questions, and whether they're insiders or not, they're very very astute in their observations. And
yeah, that's
one
why
of one of the reasons why I love this community, Jeff. You guys are awesome.
I know. Me too. This was just a picture again from the Hilo last year when they got the picture of the UAP going into the Mesa, which is on the other side where they were launching those rockets over there. This time in the east field, going into the Mesa over there. So that's correlation for that. And then they met up with Jan, and they were showing when they got to take a look at the data. This was from the first rocket launch. He found the timestamp of the actual launch, and he looked at his GPR data at that time and got this above ground level. So this was about 40 feet above him, or above him and Caleb. And if you remember what he said, they were talking about it, something, an anomaly, whatever, and he said an object.
Object.
He was very
Mhm.
clear about that.
I picked up on that as well.
Yep.
An object. He said I couldn't see it. An object that wasn't there. He goes, well, and then he corrected himself that we couldn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and everybody was nodding. And then to have the same, almost identical, look at those two notches right there,
Yeah.
circled in red. Then when the
Repeatable
second,
results.
exactly, they didn't move. He said, "We'll stand still and wait for the second launch," and then boom, happens again. Throwing different science at it and getting results. I mean,
That's why I always find myself saying the people that dismiss this show just out of hand,
mhm,
they're clearly not really watching the show,
no,
because all everybody's like, well, science, scientific method, repeatable results. Well, there you go.
mhm.
all the time. I love it.
Here's a interesting. Eric said, "My theory is that if it is an interdimensional portal, it explains what they are seeing with the data as though it's being pulled towards the lidar exposed vortex, causing time dilation." Phew, that was a mouthful, but yeah, I mean, there's some sort of a time. Time is being affected here because GPS works on time, and we know that Lunasonde had recorded a quarter of a second
Mhm.
variance in time also with their data. So that's going to screw up GPS. I mean, that's something is happening that is affecting time as well as electronics and things of that nature. So what is it? And again, you go back to his data here on the GPR. And whoa, before we get to that, let's talk about this real quick. I forgot about the UAP that showed up. This was, correct me if I'm wrong. Was this at the same time as the rocket launch and the anomaly on?
Eric seemed to indicate that it was.
I thought so.
That was the
Jan,
indication I got as well.
on Jan's equipment. Yeah, you can see it right here. This is the UAP coming in. That's the first frame of it right there. And then it moves its way across like that.
Hmm.
And this is one of those cases. I mean, they showed it in real time, and I had to watch it a second because the first time I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, wait a second. Let me back up 10 seconds. Let me watch it again. Oh, there it is. Boop, and it was gone. I mean, just that fast.
And to me, that looks. I mean, that looks more UFO than UAP. I mean, that looks like an actual craft of some kind of object. Nuts and bolts. I mean, that's at least that's kind of what my eyes were seeing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was only on screen for 5 frames,
Yeah.
and that's an OP1 Northwest camera, so that's running 24 frames a second. So that's a fifth of a second that it was there. The only thing I'll say is that
Okay.
the data that Jan showed, the object was there for 6 to 7 seconds. You can see his time scale on his
Yes.
readout. So that going through there that quick. I mean, it's again, we've seen enough birds and bugs fly by that even with 5 frames, you'd think, well, if that was a fast bird, would you be able to tell? Yes, you can tell. One of those 5 frames, you would have seen wing flap. It would have been fuzzy, blurry, but so it's not a bird, it's not a bug. The only again trouble is with one perspective like this, you can't tell how far away from the camera it was.
Correct. Yes.
And that'll give you a really good indication of speed if you knew that.
Right.
That's one of the downsides to only having one vantage point. If he had another camera, you might be able to calculate that. But regardless, the fact that GPR picked up, as he said, an object that appeared and then disappeared, I mean, that that's crazy, and repeatable.
And repeatable. Exactly.
Repeatable.
That's the key word, repeatable.
Yep.
If you know the GPR can see something showing up there that isn't visible to the naked eye, you've got something that can see it. You've got a technology that can see it.
Yep.
I would start canvassing that area
because
it was only one spot. So he wouldn't necessarily be able to tell, exactly where it was in the sky. But at 40 feet, it can't be far. That's pretty low.
Right.
The blob was at 30 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah. And
every time they fire a rocket, it shows up. So
right.
Pretty good control.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. They get all this different science, and all this different science is telling them that something is happening. And you hear Brandon talk on the promos for the show. It's not a matter of if there's something. They know there's something happening there. Now it's just a matter of being able to figure out the best way to detect it and be able to detect it anytime it's happening now. So and then by doing that, be able to figure out what exactly it is. But there's no question now that something very strange, something very anomalous is happening there, and it's affecting so many different things. It's absolutely fascinating to me that they're able to keep throwing the science at it and pick up different things. Yeah, the red circle here just shows where they were standing down there, and this thing flew right over. Basically, it looks like you just mentioned, Mike. The perspective makes it seem as if it flew right over them, and if it did, yeah, that'd probably be about 40 feet or so, roughly. So, is that what they saw on
Well,
his GPR data?
and the other thing to consider is that this thing isn't visible to the naked eye.
Correct.
So it's not like these guys watched it fly over, So um, that's another thing that we just don't know. But again, like you're saying, Mike, the perspective we don't. If we knew a little more of the distance that this thing was from, where the camera was, or where from the vantage point of where the team was on the ground, it would certainly provide us with a missing piece of data that would be very helpful. But it's moving so fast.
Yep. There's Pete Kelsey. Look at him. Jan is
Hey, Pete.
so credible.
Yeah.
So glad he's back because wow, did he get skinwalkered last time? Yeah, he sure did, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I remember capturing that because that was when he had that one of his GPR units that was supposed to be flown on a drone. And Pete talked about this. I hope I can tell the story again, Pete. I hope it's all right. You had mentioned it already, but it was going to be something that was probably going to be flown with one of your drones, but it made it too unstable. So then they had Thomas actually carry it, on straps on, and they jumped over, and he ran around the hillside with it. But right when they first turned it on, the data was wacky, and Jan, the look on his face was kind of like, I mean, this is his equipment, and he was just like, what the heck is happening here? I just tested this thing and it was working fine. Now it's not working, and so anyway, he ran around, did his thing, but again, the data was pretty much useless that Thomas had done on a hot summer day, running around in the rocks and everything. So, yes, he did get skinwalkered last time. But Jan, I really respect this guy and his equipment. You can tell he knows what he's doing for sure. And by the way, thanks for popping by, Pete. Got to get you back over here with us. Um, and we mentioned this earlier. This was the blob feature that showed up above the triangle. And the rocket, like blew up when it hit the thing or whatever. It's another crazy thing. And then we had this LiDAR image that showed up. This was at the end of the season last year. And we got a little interesting perspective. And this is another one of the pictures that Mike sent over to me is this one here. And you put these lines on here. What was that to help indicate?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people thought that this was a LiDAR scan from a tripod, myself included, just because of the way the shadows were. But as I got to looking at it, I'm like, well, you can pinpoint where the LiDAR was by taking a line of starting at the top of the shadow and putting a line from the top of the shadow to the top of the object that made the shadow. That gives you the angle that you have to go back to. And then I just extended that line on each of these objects that I picked to draw the line on. And it does show that the point where the LiDAR was, because those are shrubs, and I think there maybe even be a truck there. That's significantly higher than a tripod. That would not have been. So this would have been an aerial drone, did a sweep, and this is what you saw. Doesn't explain the big black spot. No reflectivity whatsoever.
No reflectivity, right?
I don't understand how that can happen. I mean, the shadows I understand, but there was nothing directly underneath it.
Yeah.
That it should have looked like the green and yellow and maybe even the red. But
it doesn't
make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. And Pete, and the people that understand LiDAR would be the only ones. It's just an area of no returns, I guess. It's um, again, it's that same spot. So, you go back to, again, all these different types of science looking at something that is, the cat side, it's looking back at you. Is, you know, is it some sort of a vortex? Is it some sort of a portal? Is it just a weird magnetic or electromagnetic place that is causing something in the ground is causing this massive interference with all these different things? That's still yet to be determined. But man, yeah, I'm glad you did this because it really does help to eliminate all those I'll call them questions about
Yep.
the lidar positioning and all of that. So very, very interesting. And this was the other one that they just captured this year when they were out there, and they weren't even really set up to start recording or doing anything. They were just out there, getting things set up. They were flying it around, and then they captured this. So they had to use a cell phone to actually get it off this unit so they could show it to the guys. And take a picture of it because they weren't even set up to do an experiment yet, and yet they captured this. And again, the same spot.
Yep.
Repeatable.
I would like to see Pete Kelsey
Hmm.
replicate that on purpose. I mean, create it. Could he do it? Because I don't know how you would get that many points in a cloud like that. I, I don't even. I mean, if that's one of the methods you use in science is you see something that you don't understand. Yeah, see if you could. How would you make that happen?
Yeah.
And in doing so, you may discover, how it actually happened.
Right.
And I don't understand. That's a lot of data points all around the lidar. And what is it hitting? It was a clear day.
It's
It was a
hitting
completely clear
something
day.
that was giving them those returns. Something
Right.
had to be there. Whether we could see it or not, and obviously they couldn't because they didn't walk out there and go, oh, look, there's a vortex right there. So
Yeah.
something was creating this, and why in a circular pattern like that? I mean, it's all just. So, Pete, what do you think? Could you manufacture with your lidar? Could you manufacture an image like this? And how would you go about doing it if you could? I don't know. I mean, wow, another brown socks moment. So, yeah, no way. Pete says no way. Yeah. That's yeah. What does a high concentration of radiation look like? Oh, I don't know. From a lidar? I don't know. Interesting. Yeah. The next point is they go back to Jan's GPR, and now they're looking at the ground data. And right where he is, right in that spot, is the spot that the Lunasonde had come up and said there was something weird going on there. And now they got this. Showing that there's definitely something down there. There's something down in the ground that needs to be investigated. Now, we didn't get a look at just how far down that is. I don't know the depth of that. Did you catch that at all?
No.
Either one of you guys?
The only number that's jumping out to me is they said that there was another 20 feet of something or other, but they didn't. I'm guessing that 20 feet reference was from where the most recent depth was reached. So as far as the capability of the drill going down, so what depth it was, I don't. If they did specifically mention it, I don't recall it offhand.
Yeah. I don't either. And here it is, right here. I mean, if there's any question about the spot, here they are showing it. The Lunasonde data showing that there was something right there of interest. some sort of a tunnel or a cavity of some sort, and then you've got Jan right there in the same spot. So, again, different types of science equipment used on it and getting the same type of result. We talk about that all the time.
It's essentially independent verification because you're using 3 different technologies, 3 different companies,
Yep.
and you're still getting the same. The data still points the same direction. So again, boom.
So drill, baby, drill. Get out there and drill it. And that's exactly what they did. And this is reminiscent of Oak Island because I'm like, where's the sonic drill rig? Get that thing out here. And when he said it only goes down 30 or 40 feet, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Drill 200. I mean, it walks a lot. The drill rig will walk a lot. But, here, let's see what Pete said here. He said, GPS data from Jan's GPR data has no issues. The data is where it belongs geographically and is fascinating. Sweet.
True.
Yeah. See, it is fascinating. I know. That's the thing. It blows my mind. So they go out there with the drill rig to get this thing all set up. You got Jeremy out there. Jeremy's he's the I don't know if he's the CEO of Snowshoe Engineering, to get this thing kicked off, and they get the thing all set up right in that spot that they've identified, that we were just talking about, and they begin to drill. And they bring over these core samples. Obviously, they brought over a couple of them to have them look at, and he brought it over and they cracked it open over with Eric and took a look. And it looks to me like, and I've seen this before, when they get the 6-inch core samples from Oak Island, that you have solid or sandy, in this case, a dirt base, and then a boom, you hit a void. And that looks exactly like what they get from Oak Island when they're doing all their core drilling. So they've hit a void of some sort, which is what they were looking for.
Indicative of a tunnel or possibly.
Or some sort of a chamber.
Or some kind of a chamber.
Yeah. And I wanted to say too, real quick, that, there's been, people have mentioned, this underground military base. There's an underground military base over there. But I have to think that, honestly, folks, I mean, that these guys are being observed. They're being monitored. I think that's been made very clear, that they are being monitored at some point, or, by who we don't know. If there was a military base underground here, I have to think that the military or government would not let them continue to do what they're doing, that they would have already came in there and stopped it. I mean, is that a reach for me to say that? I mean, what do you guys think?
No, that's 100%. There's never been any indication of any significant underground man-made thing of any kind there. I mean, nothing during even the Bigelow era. There wasn't anything.
Right.
At least not that we heard. Publicly.
No.
Yeah. From
no,
data, yeah.
And I think you're right. So the government was paying Bigelow to be there.
Yep.
And they let him go.
Right.
If they had a base there, why would they let him go?
Exactly.
And just keep paying him to squat on that land and keep people off it.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to that. So,
yeah.
Right. They would have protected it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, DOD would have somebody would have stepped in government wise and stopped them, and we would not have this show going on anymore.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't be drilling for it. So I think that's thrown out. I honestly don't even believe it is a base. I think they're going to find something else. I don't think there's a base down there of any type. I think they're going to find something down there.
Yeah.
They're going to find something that's causing all this. Underground, or maybe lead them to what may be causing all of this underground. But I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think there's a military base or even an alien base. To be honest,
I see the greater likelihood being one of 2 scenarios. They get down there and everything is just simply a natural formation, naturally formed voids. Again, we know that there's a lot of underground rivers, for want of a better word, or it's going to be something that is truly going to be astounding and extraordinary, meaning that it's artificially constructed, which means that somebody put those, tunnels or passageways, for want of a better term there. The fact that there's metal down there, that they seem to be at least lined in metal, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. But um, those are the two most likely scenarios that I see if they're able to actually succeed in getting down there, is that they're either going to be natural formations, or somebody long ago, or maybe, if you want to take the really left field jump, some other civilization, whether they're based here on Earth, ancient American, Native American, or something from somewhere else. Those are the two main likely scenarios, that it's either
Right.
natural or artificial.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking so too. And I am thinking, obviously there's something there.
clearly,
And I think, and because of all the UAP activity that they're having all the time over there, whether they're doing experiments or not, in my opinion, I think it's always happening. But they're getting all this UAP activity over there. So whatever it is, they like it, or they want to utilize it, or it has some benefit to them. I think, and I say them as in whoever's in charge, or handling these UAPs. So and we talked about the Uinta Basin being a place where there was what I saw. I went back. This was back when I first started watching the show. I went and looked at meteor strikes, asteroid strikes on the Earth, and they think that the Uinta Basin was an area that was hit with a meteor
Mhm.
years and years and years, or thousands of years ago. Did it leave behind some sort of material that was eventually covered up with all the debris and dirt, and now it's creating something? Is that possible? Yeah. But is it something that the UAPs would be utilizing? They're going there. They're using it for something. Maybe. I don't know. So that's kind of where I was headed with that. But again, it's just a speculation on my part.
rabbit
Absolutely.
hole goes deeper, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But I'm glad to see Eric doing this right here.
Mhm.
Right off the bat, he's like, "Oh, let's check this for radiation." I tell you what, when you're pulling stuff out of the ground, not only should you be doing this, but gas detection monitors as well, because I'm big on those. Being in the safety industry myself,
Mhm.
when you got stuff happening when you're drilling in the ground, it's a good idea to have a gas detection monitor around, especially looking for
Absolutely.
H2S. Hydrogen sulfide is a
Hydrogen
killer.
sulfide. Yes, it
Yep, it's
is.
a killer, and it can knock you down and kill you within just a matter of moments. So,
Mhm.
whenever you're drilling, and they used to carry them. I used to see a dragon would be wearing a BW monitor on him. Probably a four
Mhm.
gas monitor as he was going around. So, those are a couple things that whenever you're drilling in the ground, you want to. I personally believe do that, and then doing the radiation detection that Eric is doing here. Very, very good point. Check that out. I took this picture here because they got some new vehicles. We never saw these before, so they must have
Yeah,
acquired.
they're all electric
Electric, yeah.
UTVs.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yep.
Now, how would that be affected by the anomaly if it's electric?
Right. I know.
Very good question.
Battery drain, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have to ask Eric about that. I never even heard of these before. I never even,
Yeah.
obviously, uh, Tutara, Tuatara. I don't know how you pronounce that, but kind of interesting looking vehicles. They had a couple of them running around. Pretty cool.
Yep.
A couple of big ones. They had all kinds of racks and boxes and stuff on that one we looked at last week.
Yep.
But here's Brady and Mason over here running the drill rig, and that's when you hear Brady start to say something about having a metal taste in his mouth. Um, and it's right there. I got a weird metallic taste in my mouth. And he's right there running it. He's the guy right there, close up, close and personal with the drill rig. Thomas comes over, obviously, and pulls him, and pulls him away real quick. Says he feels absolutely fine, but yet he had that. So that, and they tell these guys, they tell everyone, and you saw him do it on the beginning of the show. You hear him tell him anything. Don't play Mr. Macho. If you feel anything, say something. because it may be serious.
Yeah, and he didn't say anything for about an hour.
Yeah.
That went on.
Yeah.
That was not good.
No, it's not good. It really isn't. I mean, you think of the safety factor, and and again, you get those naysayers out there go, "Oh, they made all that crap up." No, no, no. I really don't think they did
No.
because it happened to Eric. Because here's Eric. Eric goes over there and he starts, running over. They get him out of there. They get Brady out of there. They shut that rig down and everything, and they go over with some equipment. Now, when they first walked over there and he was scanning, they were getting nothing, normal background radiation. But then he got down there by the bottom and right down by the drill rig, and you will see that current 0.190. It was still well below dangerous, but it was higher than regular background radiation.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, you think about that. What would be down there that would be causing that? I really have no idea, but something's causing that. And then Eric started getting the metal taste in his mouth, and it was like, oh crap, let's get Eric out of here now. And then I thought it was kind of odd. And there's Travis. Travis is like, oh come on, Thomas, let's go on over there. And Thomas,
Yeah,
if I was Thomas, I'd
right.
be like, hey, look, man, I'm
I
keeping
know.
my distance.
Of all people, Thomas to go diving into something like that after what happened to him. I got to give props to Bryant when, as soon as he heard that Eric said he's got the same metallic taste in his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
Bryant said, "You're no different than anybody else. We're getting you off the ranch."
Yeah,
I'm like, good for you, Bryant.
exactly.
Get him out of there.
Yep.
Everybody should have evacuated. And then, like
Yeah.
you said, everybody should have evacuated. But what's Travis? He's like, hey, let's grab some meters. Let's go test this thing.
Yeah.
Right into the fire.
Yeah. Let's jump both feet into the fire and go see what's going on. Yeah. He ain't afraid. Like that. He ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Nope.
Yeah, but you still need to be very careful. You really,
Yeah.
really, really do. I mean, that's again, I go back to that whole gas detection. That's my thing. It's like you just don't know. And it might be a form of radiation that they didn't have anything to test for. Or to
Or
read.
you said it could have been microwaves even.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be a bad scenario.
Right.
Something out there is slow cooking them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's why I have to take it seriously.
Right. And then you hear when they did go back over, here's Thomas is, he's touching the drill pipe, the actual drill. He's touching that and he's feeling a little tingly or something from it. And then he tells Travis, and Travis reaches over and grabs a hold of it. And he does too. Now, remember back the first time that they drilled into the triangle? This was 2 seasons ago, I think. Maybe it might have been the first season. It was all about don't dig, don't drill. No, no, no. Don't do that because it's bad news. Bad stuff happens. But they did. They went over there and they drilled in the triangle and they hit that body of water. But when they were drilling, remember that they were doing Travis and Caleb. They were people were down and doing different exercises on different places on the ranch, and they had a compass. And their compasses weren't pointing towards north. They were pointing at the drill rig, which was, halfway across the ranch.
Yep.
Here it is happening. They didn't have compasses to tell them. They should have. I would love to have seen them whip out a compass and see if it was pointing at the drill rig again. But they've tapped into something that's causing electrical magnetic field of some sort. And I'll bet it would have affected the compasses. They went over and they grabbed a multimeter. They hooked up on there, and sure enough, they were getting about less than half a volt, which Travis mentioned was not much. It wouldn't really power anything, but yet
shouldn't be there.
It shouldn't be there. Right. Exactly. I forget how many times higher. It might be in my notes here.
You know what came to my mind though when we saw this happen was the experiment that they did with the Tesla coil, and how the ground was already seems to be like a natural conductor, and that was the first thing that popped into my mind was, hey, we've seen this before. Where he sticks the one thing into the ground, and the other one to the drill bit.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's got to be a connection there somewhere.
you're right. I think so. That's very interesting. Um, yeah, and Tom brings up a good point here. He says, "I wonder if they checked other parts of the drill truck for electrical current,
Yeah.
possible sources. A pipe could be acting as a ground." There you go. That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Hmm.
I'm kind of
Um,
surprised the drill rig operator though, because they both reacted pretty quickly when they put their hands on that drill rod to feeling something weird. I mean, that guy does that for a living. You would have thought if he felt something like that, he
mhm.
would have right away said, "Hey, this is not normal. I don't
Yeah,
normally get tingly hand when I'm, you know, moving the pipe around or touching the pipe, that type of thing." So
right.
I wonder if that was going on while he was there or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, Brian brings up a point here. You can't feel low voltage as low as a half a volt. You probably can't. So that's why it tells me there had to be something else happening there
Yeah.
besides that, along with that. This was the only way that they could try to read something real quick, put a multimeter on it, but had to be something else happening if they're feeling it. Um, and I have felt. I mean, have you ever touched an electric fence? I mean, but you get that,
I plead the fifth.
Only once.
yeah, only once. But in same thing, remember when Eric had mentioned the taste in his mouth? He was talking about when you put a battery on your tongue,
Yeah.
that kind of
Right.
thing,
9 volt.
yeah, a little 9-volt battery.
Yeah.
It's only 9 volts, but it's the current, and you're feeling that current going through that little pulsation. So, I mean, yeah. So hopefully we'll get more details on this, but I just like I said, I was thinking back of the last time they were doing the drilling, in there in the triangle area, and there was a body of water. There was water, and it looked like it was moving under there. Now that will create friction and will create some sort of a magnetic field.
Correct.
Um, they talk about grounding your pipes of your house. You're grounding your house electrical system through the pipes, obviously, but only because they're in the ground. But it does create electrical field. Even like when I was in the Navy, the ship passing through the ocean creates static electricity, and they have to degauss the ship after when you get back because it builds up. So as
Charge. Yep.
yeah, it does. It builds up a charge, and as this drill's working in there, and and it's if it's even getting close to touching that water, it's probably building up a charge. Again, that's what may be affecting the compass needles to be pointing at it. You've got a big magnetic pole sticking up in the ground now.
Yep.
That's changing your north pole to the point over there. So I don't know. It's but again,
Things to make
another
you go, hmm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So, hopefully now I want to see him get down deeper because
Yeah.
and here we are with that point, and then other shows do this to us all the time where they get right to the point. Oh, we got a void, and then stop. We better find out what's going on with this next week.
Yes. No cliffhangers. Hate
Yeah,
Right.
cliffhangers.
yeah.
And it's
So
even more frustrating with commercials.
Right.
yeah, I know, right? So but I tell you, uh, you know we've already established there's something definitely going on down there. That's for sure. Now, they showed a little clip of next time on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And it went by so quickly, and then I caught it again today, and I grabbed this picture right here. This, if I remember correctly, this is what Jan's data was showing was under the ground, not above the ground, correct? I think that's what this was.
I
If
think
anybody in
so.
the I think so. If anybody in the chat remembers exactly, was this underground or above ground that he was? I think it was
I,
underground.
I think it was above ground actually because
Oh,
they mentioned specifically assuming the comment is tied into this particular image. He mentioned something about a debris field up in the air. I mean, or maybe maybe I heard that wrong, but that was kind of what I thought when I watched the preview for it. Was
Yeah.
that particular data indicated that it was up in the air and that it was best described as a debris field? But I admittedly could be very wrong about that. So
Yeah, I couldn't remember it. I was thinking under, and that's most people are jumping in saying under.
yeah.
Um,
So
Now, if this is what
pay
his
no
thing
attention to the man in the hat.
I couldn't I'm you know, I'm in the same point.
Yeah,
I was
I don't
listening and
know.
I would have to go back and listen to it again, but I was thinking it was under, but yeah. So if that's the case and it is under the ground, then this is exactly what they were picking up. The Lunasonde, the GPR, was picking up these areas underneath the ground, if that's what it is. But we'll find out next week. But I'm really curious about this. This is whether it's
Mhm.
above or well, I think if it's actually above the ground, that would be even more mysterious than being underground cavity.
Yeah.
They got to drill into it either way. If it's underground, they got to finish drilling into this thing and find out exactly what it is. Because it's definitely that's some open void. I mean, we've seen this on, again, I know I keep talking about Oak Island, but we've seen this kind of stuff with the muon technology and whatnot, showing
Mhm.
cavities underground and GPR data, and this is one of them right here. So, um, there's a guy that Jeremy Church, he's with Panther Geoscience, and he works with seismic data. And it's where they take these little points of they got a thumper they can use. It goes out and actually just it's like a machine that thumps the ground, and then they pick up the sensors, or they place sensors all around, and they pick up the vibrations, and they can tell if there's like open cavities and stuff below the ground. So, but he can also do it with the little dynamite charges. They put them on there, and that's how they find something. He's found some really really interesting things, and I would be really curious to see him go out to Skinwalker Ranch and do something like that.
Yep.
That's an excellent point, Jeff, because um, it'd be really interesting to see if they had some way, or if they currently are putting seismic detectors there in the approximate areas where those entry and exit points were for the mesa for those UAPs to
Mhm.
come in and out. Because if something is going in to the ground, would it be if it's an object of some kind? You would think that there's got to be some kind of seismic
Yeah.
activity
Yeah.
that might register. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but I think seismic data might be interesting to see if there is any. Now, I do know that the Uinta Basin, particularly in the Uinta Mountains, there's a fair amount of regular seismic activity. So,
Mm,
how accurate even something like that would be,
mhm.
I don't know. I guess you'd have to have a baseline of information regarding what usual seismic activity is in that particular area on
Yeah.
the ranch. But would still be fascinating nonetheless. I think to get that kind of data going.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the natural gas fields too. Yeah, Tom just brought that up, and you got those wells that are around the ranch that we've seen the fires at nighttime,
Hmm.
burning knives or burning stuff off. So, I mean, those things, they talk about those creating a seismic activity as well to a small degree.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I don't know, man. Pretty interesting. So overall, your thoughts on this episode, or up to this point, I guess, on the season? I know you've got Jim. You've got your own podcast. It was kind of funny because Jim and Roger, when you reached out to me about that, and you're saying, "Hey, we're gonna talk about this kind of stuff a little bit. We're gonna do 5 minutes," and I laughed. 5 minutes.
We did successfully do one though. We did do our very first for episode one. We kept it right around 5 minutes, and but ever since
Oh yeah.
then, yeah, that train derailed a long time ago.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I tell you,
it-
yeah, that's 5 minutes. Hard to do. It's just too much. There's just too much stuff here for to
yeah.
try to cover it in 5 minutes. I mean, but you guys got a good thing going. So, folks, if you haven't already, check out Jim and Roger. They've got a podcast, Soul of the Unexplained, right? SOL of the Unexplained.
Thank you, sir. Yep.
You can find it right there on YouTube, and they do a great job. The two of them going through all that. I think Roger needs to work on his internet connection a little bit. He seemed a
Yeah,
little
it's
fuzzy.
kind of jumpy sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, yep. But no, great stuff. So check them out. Soul
Thank
of the Unexplained. Check them out on YouTube.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off, but the season so far, you guys are.
Mike,
I
I'll let you go first.
It's been continual edge of the seat stuff. I mean, they dove in right away with experiments right off the bat and started getting responses or strange things happening almost immediately, and it's just been nonstop. I almost hate to think what next season would be like. I mean, every season has gotten more and more intense, and more stuff has happened. And I know that there's supposed to be some pretty intense stuff still coming this season. So pretty good stuff.
More to come.
Yeah, exactly what you said, Mike. For me, this whole season started off with seemingly more focus on just their whole approach to everything. They seem to be like no pun intended with all the LiDAR, but a laser focus with everything that they're doing. And we're now starting to see repeatable results. And we're starting to see, again, that data seems to coalesce from multiple different sensor platforms and they're bringing multiple independent people onto the property, and they're getting a lot of the data just all points in the directions that the team is going where that data leads them. And I think that's extremely exciting. And like I said at the onset, if you had told me that here we are, 4 episodes into season 5, and one of the main talking points was talking about the encounters that the Shermans had, going back to what may be a dire wolf. Again, that just was not in the cards for me. I would not have chosen that as one of the things that we would be revisiting. But that's the nature of the ranch, though, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
Just when you think you've got a foothold on something, it goes, watch this, watch what I'm going to do to this guy. And it just blows it up. And, I've talked with a number of insiders, and some of them are actually here, like John Nyberger and Dennis Clark, just talking about that rabbit hole that is Skinwalker Ranch. And there are so many possibilities that are out there. And that's what I find so compelling and so exciting, is that it's not necessarily, I guess the way that I've heard it explained is that it's not so much new physics. It's just physics that we don't understand yet going on with a lot of these things. We just don't have an understanding of them. They're not breaking the laws of physics. This is just things that for whatever reason, we haven't been able to observe to this degree with this kind of technology, with this much of a focus on it. And to me, again, that's a very exciting time to watch all of this unfold before us. And like you said, Mike, we're supposed to be getting some stuff that's going to be even more jaw-dropping later on this season in episodes to come than what we've already seen. And like you, Mike, literally the last 2 episodes, I've been sitting on the edge of my couch like, and there's been a couple times where I'm just like, I literally stood up because I was just so, wow, did I just see that? And I think there's more of that to come. And again, I have no idea. I mean, when we started in season 1, I had no idea really what to make of all of it. And the only thing that I can honestly tell people that ask me about it, because the people that know that I have a real keen interest in this, is that whatever it is, and I think we're dealing with several it's, whatever that is, it's real. This phenomena is real.
Oh, definitely.
And there's no question about it that what we are seeing is real. And the fact that it could be something that's truly going to just turn our understanding of time and reality, that it has the potential to turn that on its ear to where it's just going to completely redefine how we look at our world, how we look at the universe, how we look at who we are and what our place is in those things. That is what to me is the most compelling thing about Skinwalker Ranch. And, whether it ends up being some ultra top secret government technology, which I think some of it maybe, but then it goes the other direction. Could it be truly something of an interdimensional nature or time anomalies?
Extraterrestrial, yeah.
Yeah, just I mean it, and I'm always quick to say I don't like to jump on the extraterrestrial bandwagon, the ET bandwagon, just because that's where everybody seems to want to go, and I've always been one of the people that doesn't go with the flow in my life.
Yep.
But again, even that is something that I'm not saying. Well, we can't toss that option out because we just don't know if that's where the data leads us. Then you know what? I'll be right there jumping on that bandwagon.
Yep, me
If
too.
that's the key thing. It's wherever the data and
Yes.
all this leads us, and
Where's the science take us? Yep, exactly.
the science and the fact that they're using the scientific method in all of this.
Yep.
And I think we're going to probably get to the point, and maybe Eric will address this when he's on your show tomorrow. But at some point, I'd imagine there's going to be peer review. And then once we get the peer review of some of these findings that they get, that's when they go to publish it. And that's when,
Yep.
it's again, this is just such an exciting time to be alive. And I'm just grateful to be a spectator, to be a part of this. And wow.
Yeah, Pete said the white whale, Jim.
The white whale. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Pete.
Yep.
Pete popped up there and said the white whale. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm on board with that 100%. I'm really looking forward to see what they come up with now. I'm really excited to see Drone-ageddon. With the drones, when they bring Sky Elements back out. I'm assuming it's Sky Elements. I don't know who else can handle something that big of a project, but so that's going to be coming. I mean, we have a lot more in store with the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And guys and folks out there, I'm telling you, we're going to be right here covering every single bit of it all season long till the very end. We're going to cover it. And again, there's going to be other people coming on, but don't forget tomorrow night, Eric Bard is going to be joining us 7:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night, right here, the J Free 906 podcast. And we're gonna throw the lasso out and get Pete Kelsey back, get him back on here too, because he's always got great things to share with us. Well, and I don't know this. Pete has not told me because he's not allowed to say. I'm just guessing we're going to see him in season 5 out there. And if we do, then
let me check my bingo card. Yep.
I think, stay tuned. Like I said, I have no idea, but I'm assuming he will be, and I can't wait till he is, because that's when we're going to get him on the show and come talk about his data and what happened to him. Will he get skinwalkered once again? Probably. All right, that's it for me, guys. Last thought. Anything else?
Now, Jeff, I don't know about you, but when I get a metal taste in my mouth, it's usually because I've been listening to Queensryche or something like that.
Yes.
So,
that's still one of my all-time favorite albums, Queensryche Empire.
I'm actually working on a cover of Silent Lucidity right now.
Really?
So when I get that done, I'll let
that's
you
one of my top 5 songs of all time is Silent Lucidity.
Me too.
I love that tune. So, all right. With that note, we'll catch you next time, folks, right here on the J Free 906 podcast. See you tomorrow night.
See ya.
See ya.